Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in our series, Great Expectations. Without further ado, returning to Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Herbert said from behind, again poking me, "Massive and concrete." So I said boldly, as if I had originated it, and must beg to insist upon it, "Massive and concrete." "I'm glad to have your approbation, gentlemen," said Mr. Waldengarver, with an air of dignity, in spite of his being ground against the wall at the time, and holding on when he... "But I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Waldengarver," said the man who was on his knees, "in which you're out in your reading. Now mind, I don't care who says contrary. I tell you so. You're out in your reading of Hamlet when you get your legs in profile. The last Hamlet, as I dressed, made the same mistakes in his reading at rehearsal, till I got him to put a large red wafer on each of his shins, and then at the rehearsal, which was the last, I went in front, sir, to the back of the pit, and whenever his reading brought him into profile, I called out, 'I don't see no wafers,' and at night his reading was lovely." Mr. Waldengarver smiled at me, as much as to say, "A faithful dependent. I overlook his folly," and then said aloud, "My view is a little classic and thoughtful for them here, but they will improve. They will improve." Herbert and I said together, "Oh, no doubt they would improve." "Did you observe, gentlemen," said Mr. Waldengarver, "there was a man in the gallery who endeavored to cast derision on the service, I mean the representation." We basely replied that we rather thought we had noticed such a man. I added, "He was drunk, no doubt." "Oh dear, no, sir," said Mr. Wopsle. "Not drunk. His employer would see to that." "Sir, his employer would not allow him to be drunk." "You know his employer?" said I. Mr. Wopsle shut his eyes and opened them again, performing both ceremonies very slowly. "You must have observed, gentlemen," said he, "an ignorant and blatant ass, with a rasping throat, and a countenance expressive of low malignity, who went through, I will not say sustained the role, if I may use a French expression, of Claudius, King of Denmark. That is his employer, gentlemen. Such is the profession." Without distinctly knowing whether I should have been more sorry for Mr. Wopsle if he had been in despair, I was so sorry for him as it was, that I took the opportunity of his turning round to leave his braces put on, which he jostled out at the doorway, to ask Herbert what he thought of having him home to supper. Herbert said he thought it would be kind to do so. Therefore I invited him, and he went to Barnard's with us, wrapped up to the eyes, and we did our best for him. And he sat until 2 o'clock in the morning, reviewing his success and developing his plans. I forget that in detail what they were, but I have a general recollection that he was to begin with reviving the drama, and to end with crushing it, inasmuch as his decease would leave it utterly bereft and without a chance or hope. Miserably I went to bed after all, and miserably thought of Estella, and miserably dreamed that my expectations were all cancelled, and that I had to give my hand in marriage to Herbert's Clara, or play Hamlet to Miss Harriet's ghost before 20,000 people, without knowing 20 words of it. Chapter 32. One day when I was busy with my books and missed a pocket, I received a note by the post, the mere outside of which threw me into a great flutter. For though I had never seen the handwriting in which it was addressed, I divined whose hand it was. It had no set beginnings, as Dear Mr. Pip, or Dear Pip, or Dear Sir, or Dear Anything, but ran thus: I am come to London the day after tomorrow by the midday coach. I believe it was settled you should meet me. At all events, Miss Havisham has that impression, and I write in obedience to it. She sends you her regard. Yours, Estella. If there had been time, I should probably have ordered several suits of clothes for this occasion. But as I was fain to be content with those I had. My appetite vanished instantly, and I knew no peace or rest until the day arrived. Not that its arrival brought me either, for then I was worse than ever, and began haunting the coach office in Wood Street, Cheapside, before the coach had left the Blue Boar in our town. For all that I knew this perfectly well, I still felt as if it were not safe to let the coach office be out of my sight longer than 5 minutes at a time. And in this condition of unreason, I had performed the first half hour of a watch of 4 or 5 hours, when Wemmick ran against me. "Halloa, Mr. Pip," said he. "How do you do? I should hardly have thought this was your beat." I explained I was waiting to meet somebody who was coming up by coach, and I inquired after the castle and the aged. "Both flourishing, thank ye," said Wemmick, "and particularly the aged. He's in wonderful feather. He'll be 82 next birthday. I have a notion of firing 82 times, if the neighbourhood shouldn't complain, and that cannon of mine should prove equal to the measure. However, this is not London talk. Where do you think I am going to?" "To the office?" said I, for he was tending in that direction. "Next thing to it," returned Wemmick. "I am going to Newgate. We are in a banker's parcel just at present, and I have been down the road taking a squint at the scene of action, and thereupon must have a word or two with our client." "Did your client commit the robbery?" I asked. "Bless your soul and body, no," answered Wemmick, very dryly. "But he is accused of it. So might you or I be. Either of us might be accused of it, you know." "Only neither of us is," I remarked. "Yah!" said Wemmick, touching me on the breast with his forefinger. "You're a deep one, Mr. Pip. Would you like to have a look at Newgate? Have you time to spare?" I had so much time to spare that the proposal came as a relief, notwithstanding its irreconcilability with my latent desire to keep my eye on the coach office, muttering that I would make the inquiry whether I had time to walk with him. I went into the office and ascertained from the clerk with the nicest precision, and much to the trying of his temper, the earliest moment at which the coach could be expected, which I knew beforehand quite as well as he. I then rejoined Mr. Wemmick, and affecting to consult my watch and to be surprised by the information I had received, accepted his offer. We were at Newgate in a few minutes, and we passed through the lodge where some fetters were hanging up on the bare walls among the prison rules, into the interior of the jail. At that time, jails were much neglected, and the period of exaggerated reaction, consequent on all public wrongdoing, and which is always its heaviest and longest punishment, was still far off. So, felons were not lodged and fed better than soldiers, to say nothing of paupers, and seldom set fire to their prisons with the excusable object of improving the flavour of their soup. It was visiting time when Wemmick took me in, and a potman was going his rounds with beer, and the prisoners, behind bars and yards, were buying beer and talking to friends, and a frowsy, ugly, disorderly, depressing scene it was. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.